I look at the 4 games, but here, just to kind of go back to it a little bit, man. We're going to talk about this news that came out a little bit, man.
Yeah.
And this news right here, this is 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row, they gave you something. Now, last week, we heard the triumvirate. No violence, no coercion, no force, right? We heard those words. We like, ooh, that's kind of crazy. This week, they talk about they got tape recordings. This, right now, they might want to go back and get Buzbee and ask him for his cliff notes of how he got that money, because he was winning the case. He was winning in public. He had the HBO. Yeah. He kept bringing them out, trickling them. He got the 20 out of the 24 to settle. He got that bag. Y'all might want to call him up, because right now the NFL is looking crazy, and 5 of those cases out of the 12 have no force, no court. It's looking rough.
And I'll tell you something, G. First of all, it's like Buzbee it was a relay race. Buzbee had the baton and a huge lead, and then he went to transfer the baton to the league, and they dropped the baton. And everybody passed him.
Well, because Buzbee's playing in the court of public opinion, where it's loosey-goosey, right? I don't have to give you any facts. I give you a bunch of innuendo, and we're going to run with it,
but
right?
There was enough there that the 20 people that he settled with the 20
as you start digging into weeds here, yesterday they said, so the 5 cases that they presented in the hearing, the 7 that they left out, they said one of them was really problematic because the brother of one of the accusers was like in here basically telling all lies, right? And so they were like, so this is...
Or it was the son, wasn't it? The son.
The son.
Yeah.
So when you sit here and get all the facts out, because that's where they are now. They were in a place where you had to actually present some facts, right? And I think that's part of the problem here, G.
Deshaun Watson has said the whole time, and we thought to a point he was kind of looking like, man, he was really steadfast on this. He said, when all the facts come out, I feel like I'll be exonerated and I'll be able to clear my name from what is said has been happening with the allegations. And he said that from Jump Street, even after he settled. And as we start to see these trickle, because here's the thing about, you could lie to the media. Yeah. You can insinuate, you can do all kind of other stuff, but guess what you can't do? You can't lie under oath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people do. You can. But it's against the law to do it.
Penalties.
I don't buy that Deshaun Watson's ever going to be exonerated. There'll be people that won't believe him no matter what. I still believe in a lot of these cases there's probably some gray area where the women might have felt they were being pressured. He didn't realize they were feeling that. I think that's entirely possible. And so, but in the end, at this point, what most of us care about is when will he be back on the field? And it does seem like the tea leaves are changing, and that maybe he's going to be back sooner than later. The Dan Graziano report, we referenced it briefly yesterday. Here it is. Here's some of the speculation. NFL still wants an indefinite suspension, initial push for an entire season. But here's the one. Dan Graziano said on ESPN that the league may be open to the possibility of cutting the suspension down to 12 games. He would still have to apply for reinstatement, but that they would be open to considering out of 12 games. Guys, I think, and I know, Mike, you look like you want to jump in on this, I don't think Watson's camp, I don't think the NFLPA will agree to any suspension that includes he has to reapply. Because I think the NFLPA and Watson's camp feel like there's some momentum with them in the court of public opinion after it was mostly with the women for a while. And they feel like if Judge Robinson gives a suspension that is 8 games or less, and we don't know that she'll do that, but if she gives a suspension 8 games or less, and the league tries to Bigfoot her, the league's going to now look bad instead of Watson. Whereas if they make it a suspension where he has to apply, then the league can rule then, and it's long after. They want the league, the NFLPA and Watson's camp want Robinson's, whatever she says,
ruling to be final.
Final. That's it. They want to move on after that.
Yeah, because if there's an appeal process and he has to reinstate, there's
then
no
it's a little more hush-hush.
It pushes it back again, and next thing you know, 12 games in, Watson applies for reinstatement. The NFL says, we're not ready. It leaves the door open for new information to come out, for new details to come out that may paint Watson in a bad picture and extend whatever the initial suspension that they agree upon, because it wouldn't be through ruling with Robinson. So by even giving the option of reinstatement, it just extends this process that much longer. There's no way Watson and his camp are going to agree to it.
Be clear, Mikey. The NFL wants to get away from it as far as they can, as quick as they can. The Players Association is not going for a 12-game suspension and apply for reinstatement. You can forget that, right? Because if you do that, we just go an all-out war, and all the daggers are going to come out.
Yep.
It does nobody any good here. The thing that I always think about is this. Sometimes when you're both caught in a pinch point, you better try to negotiate your way out of here to something that works. Now, the NFL stance publicly has to be, in my opinion, I'm bringing the hammer, I'm bringing the weight.
Right.
I cannot relinquish that position in public, right? But I can walk in after and say, we have just reached an agreement, G. The Players Association and Watson's camp to a number that we both can live with here, right? And so I think as time goes on here, Bull, that this is the inner workings of politics behind the scene, right?
Yeah.
Because smart people here, they're smart people on both sides. Somebody has to be saying, wait a minute, this is a train wreck coming here.
I think what's interesting, guys, in the court of public opinion is that you're talking about, it's a mix here. And you guys have both referenced this. There's a lot of people in the black community that are keeping an eye on this situation and feel like black people always get screwed in the court system. And here in this case, Deshaun Watson, in Texas, not known for their being fair in terms of race, exonerated. Well, I shouldn't say exonerated him. That's not fair.
Two grand juries
said they couldn't bring up charges. They didn't exonerate him. And so people are watching this. Now, if you have Sue Robinson, a black woman, say, I think Deshaun Watson's suspension should be 4 games. So she's a woman and a person of color. And so if they Bigfoot her to give a longer suspension to a black man who's been not exonerated, I gotta stop saying that, who's been cleared of or not brought charges against him in Texas, I think it looks really bad in that vein.
I'll just be clear about it. It looks really racist.
Yes.
Like, they should be honest with it. Like, it don't look bad. It just looks racist.
You're right.
And we'll drill down on it. When Buzbee and Harden were arguing over whether or not that Deshaun Watson did anything to violate the public or player conduct rule, right? Personal conduct. Well, we already know that in court, they've had to say that yes, Robert Kraft violated that same clause, but we didn't give him anything. Do you understand? Now how does that sound? And then we even have people coming on radio stations justifying that. Well, it is what it is. No. We're not going to play that it is what it is, because listen, there's a lot of people that have not forgotten this. When they was kneeling all across the country to police brutality, the league was not kind to players. They were not kind. And as soon as George Floyd happened, Roger Goodell wants to, let's get up here.
Empty statements.
Hey, you know what? The league stands with. No, you didn't. You act like we don't. Why do you people feel like we are dumb? Like we don't see this stuff happening in real time? So the thought process is this. We've been talking about it from Jump Street. These aren't new things coming out. There's documents and stuff saying that there was some discrepancies in some of their statements to begin with. The problem is this. The NFL wants to continue to act like they have the leverage in this situation. They don't. Because guess what? If Sue Robinson comes back and says, hey, this is the judgment, what is it going to look like if you go over her head and trump that?
Right.
You can't do that.
So I just want to get to what Bull said in here. So speaking from the black community side, the black community is not a monolith. It's not singular in thinking.
Fair.
Right? It is not. It is. But what it really wants to see is some fairness. Right.
Yep.
Because we don't know what Deshaun Watson did. I have no idea. Right?
He knows and they know.
Right.
That's
I have no idea what he
did.
We just want, I think, when I sum it up for what I hear from folks that live in my neck of the woods, right? They just want the process to be fair. And then at the end of the day, if something happened and he needs to be punished for it, that's what it is.
Right.
That's what they want, just fairness, right? But when it looks like, to your point, that if you're jerry-rigging it behind the scene, right? Because we have seen this happen, right? I watched Colin Kaepernick, whose stance was basically about police brutality, get hijacked, right? It got hijacked.
Took the whole thing.
It went from that to about the flag, and I'm like, that's not what he's talking about. He's just talking about what played out in Minneapolis before it played out.
Yes.
Right? And we, just from the standpoint of this is what we see. Do not discount that. This is what we see.
Right.
And so they just want it to be fair. And then at that, we'll live with it from there.
Equal treatment under the law, under the policy.
And if you hire Sue Robinson and make it seem, and she's a very qualified, credible person, and make it seem like she has this power, and then you take away that power by bigfooting her, it makes it seem like you were using her as a pawn.
Right.
And that makes you look even worse.
And even with saying that, Sue Robinson might come back, and what we have to take in consideration too is it could be longer than we think, and we got to live with it.
Be clear.
Absolutely.
Be clear. Sue Robinson is in the crosshairs here. In baseball, the squeeze play is on.
Oh, yeah.
Right? She's in the middle of the squeeze play.
No doubt.
Now we're going to see how she gets out of the rundown here. This is what's happening here.
Absolutely. And I think the conversation changes if her penalty is stricter than we expect.
Yes.
I think we're starting to feel like it's not going to be.
Right.
But it could
go the other way.
But if it goes the other way, we're going to be like, well, okay. I mean, I think I'm going to be more okay with it if she puts the penalty rather than Goodell in the NFL.
And the tide is seemingly turning in Watson's favor in the
it feels that way.
public opinion. I read something in Sportico I thought was really interesting the other day about Robinson's process in getting the briefs, taking her time, making sure that her judgment is ironclad. So whether it's Watson's camp or the NFL's camp who wants to come back against it, they're going to have to prove that everything she's collected over the last 2 weeks with the written briefs, the hearings, all the testimonies,
well,
is
she
inaccurate.
Was doing stuff before that too.
But I'm saying with
interviews.
Within that realm, though, the evidence to overturn her judgment is going to be so prevalent and so over the top.
Yeah.
That who cares if she takes so long? I'd rather her take her time and make the right judgment than rush to something that's going to be overturned or inclusive.
In the normal process of arbitration, this is normal. So the judge, as she hears the case, she is making her notes and figuring out which direction she's going. The briefs at the end are just really for you to make your case, your final play at her, and say, okay, this is what I think. And she goes through that, and then she sifts through it. She's going to render a decision here. And I would say this: her decision is based in fact, because she's really one of the few people that's heard all the facts. Right? We haven't heard the facts.
That's true.
We've heard bits and pieces.
Listen, there's no way, there's nothing we know that would give you any reason to question her credibility. Fair?
No.
Right.
Okay.
No.
So whatever she decides, even though, you've been saying all along maybe he shouldn't be suspended or it should be low. I've been saying it should be fairly low. A lot of other people in this town have been saying it should be high, blah, blah, blah. If she comes with a high suspension or low, whatever, I'm gonna give her complete whatever she decides. I'm good with.
And that's why I try to be objective in the thing. Yeah, we would like Watson to play, but at the end of the day, if she comes back with what she's coming back with, she's heard all the testimony, she's heard all the briefings, she's heard people stand in front of her and have to tell under oath what happened.
And as far as we know, she's got no agenda like the NFL does.
It'll suck. We might have to see you next year, Deshaun.
Was she appointed by the NFL? Did the NFL appoint her to this position, or how did they come to?
They hired her.
They agreed to
in collective bargaining.
But with her background and her credibility, I can't imagine she would take this to be a pawn for the NFL. There's just no reason to believe that's the case, so I'm going to trust.
That's not what I was implying. I was curious how she got in this position.
Yeah, I mean, I think she got hired she was hired by them. But
well, I think when you're in collective bargaining, then they agreed on the process, and they ultimately, like when I'm in an arbitration case, I get to both parties get to agree on who the arbiter is.
Right.
So they had to probably do that.
Yeah. Hired was a bad choice of words.